I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping lift more people onto the tech sales path to create more freedom and fulfillment in their lives. And who better to lift others up than Alex Kremer? He spent years in tech sales at big enterprises like Microsoft, and then went to booming startups like Outreach and DocuSign. And most recently, he founded his own company, Alluviance, that's committed to helping others rise up into leadership in tech sales. We're going to dig into how to reach your full potential as a seller and as a leader in tech. And yes, that is possible for you if you've considered leadership. You are capable of that. So before we dive in, make sure to like the video because the YouTube algorithm loves that too. And we'll show this video to more people who could benefit from the message. Subscribe to the channel for weekly interviews with inspiring people like Alex. And stay tuned for the whole conversation. It's going to be a good one. Alex, thanks for joining. How's your day going so far?
What up? I'm doing phenomenal, man. I mean, this is I just finished my day of meetings, and now this is the capper to it. I mean, what better way to have a finisher to my day?
Hey, I feel the same way, man. Can't wait to dive in. And shout out to Des. She joined the conversation. She's actually going to your upcoming Arise retreat in Austin. Tell me about that. Aren't you pumped for it?
Hell yeah. What up, Des? Good to see you. Yeah, we got an immersion coming up here in Austin, Texas, where you are living right now. When I was just down there, a month or so ago, you and I got breakfast together as I was kind of scoping out different areas for the event itself. But yeah, we got an upcoming immersion, 3 days, July 14th through 16th. Really is for tech sales professionals, tech sales leaders, really trying to do three things. Number one, trying to better and hone the craft of sales. Number two, work on the inner game, work on our mental health, our vision, on who we are becoming. And number three, most importantly, just being great freaking community with fellow people on that journey who are wanting to improve themselves every single day. So there's going to be a little bit of cold plunge, some breath work. There's going to be a lot of different speakers on sales. And I got one of my longtime coaches who's a former Zen monk who will be coming and teaching us a few things too. So just, cruising out of Austin, looking to have a good time.
Can't wait to see you, man. Can't wait to see Des. Des, again, shout outs. Thanks for and we're going to have a great time. And I actually, speaking of cold plunges, had the founders of a cold plunge company called Having a Cold One on the channel recently. That was last week. So they're based in Austin. We'll have to get you connected. I can't wait for you to join this community. The Silicon Hills, as they call it, is full of booming startups, great people that are like yourself, creative and open and trying to make a contribution. And I think it's kind of funny when we got coffee at Summer House, which is a great spot, kind of bougie for those who are in Austin, Texas. Remember, I dropped my creamer all over the place like a klutz. You did. And guys, the great news is if a klutz like me can be successful in tech sales, so can you. So boom. But hey, speaking of success, right, I wanted to dive into the first topic, which is a post that I saw you post on LinkedIn. And it was pretty insightful about, I think it was 6 unexpected lessons that you learned about success in tech sales that will have your W-2 and your clientele thanking you. Now, if you don't remember all 6 tidbits, I got your back. I can keep you accountable on that. But could you speak a little bit to those unexpected lessons you've learned on your journey?
I have learned a few of those lessons for sure. I think my first one was something along the lines of the more you fixate on money, the less money actually comes towards you.
Yes.
And, it's funny. So just, I, like you said, I was at Microsoft for 5 years, joined Outreach when it was 150 employees. Was an AE there for my first year and then moved up into leadership, led and developed, many different teams there, moved to New York, opened up our office. Now I'm the head of sales here at Catalyst in addition to founding Alluviance. And, during that time, I've hired and trained, first-time closers. And I will raise my hand and tell you, I am down to make as much money as possible. I am down to absolutely close and crush quota, so to speak. But, what I have found is if it is not first grounded in a purpose, grounded in a vision, really doing something that is part of your mission of what you're actually being called to most, it's going to be fleeting. Because even if you do end up hitting quota or making a lot of money, you're going to feel good maybe for 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden you're going to say, oh man, there's another 0 next to my name because we just started a new year. Now I have to go and hit that again. And so what I really believe is that, the best way to make a lot of money, is it merely being a byproduct of you living with a greater sense of what you are trying to really bring to this earth that's going to be impacting um, millions of people uh, beyond just yourself. And while that is a very daunting thought right there, there's definitely a process of figuring out what is your North Star,
Hmm.
allowing the purpose of your vision not necessarily be that you attain it, but really the purpose of your vision is who it causes you to be today. And when we can start to embody those characteristics, those habits, that mindset of the person who achieves that vision, um, the rest usually starts to take care of itself. And sometimes it's a hell of a lot better than you initially thought it was actually going to be.
Man, yeah, I do feel if we have that personal vision and that why defined, it creates a emotional link to the work we're doing, and it helps us push through all the difficult stuff. And the money ultimately is a consequence. I don't know about you, but yeah, I do want to make a lot of money for sure. And the older I get, I want that freedom. That's a core aspect of why tech sales is awesome. But I feel like I'm not truly purely money motivated. I'm more meaning motivated. Would you describe yourself that way?
In my opinion, there's two things that everybody craves, whether or not they realize it. The first one is meaning. Like, why am I here? What am I actually trying to do? How can I be in these gifts and just do not just what I'm good at, but what feels freaking good? Like,
Yeah.
what am I naturally curious at, that not only am I maybe innately good at it, but like I just want to learn more at it. Like, you can never satiate this appetite for teach me more about this. Like, for example, for so long, and still, components of it today is I wanted to not just be a sales rep, I wanted to be a sales professional, right? I wanted to embody the traits. Just like an engineer is an engineer or a doctor's a doctor, I'm a sales professional. And
Mm.
it was like when I would learn how to do a cold call, when I learned how to do an effective discovery technique to help to quantify the pain, when I learned a new negotiating framework. One of my favorite parts of a sales call is the demo and how to make a great demo. I could never learn enough. I was always just like, oh, there's a new book on how to do this. Oh, there's a new talk track that my mentor just tried and it really worked. Like, teach me. I want to learn more about it. And when we can find that thing, you will always be enjoying the journey no matter what your results are, because you just get to learn about what you care about. And the second thing that I think everybody really wants is community. They want
Mm.
meaning and they want community. If they are a part of a tribe that is working towards a common goal that is bigger than just themselves, and you're kind of like, you're going through the mud, so to speak, like with your crew, like even during the high points and especially the low points, you're like, at least I got my crew
Yeah.
with me.
Got my bro, Alex.
I got my bro Chris here, and so it's gonna be good. And so, if we can figure out a way to get both those two things, I think that's gonna take us to a place that we want to be taken to.
Yeah, I certainly want to go there. And I've got a book over here that reminds me of what you're talking about. I don't know if you heard of this, but it's called The Good Life, and it's on the longest standing study on happiness conducted by Harvard, a longitudinal study of 80 plus years, and it followed Harvard students. The only limitation was it was mostly men at the time, but it's expanded to women and LGBTQ communities. But men at Harvard, men in the streets, from tough families, and the number one contributor to happiness was loving relationships or connection. And there's different flavors, right? And so to your point on community, to your point on meaning, man, it's like we chase so many things, but the answer is it's right there in front of us. So I don't know if you have any thoughts to riff on off that. Otherwise, I got more questions for you.
It's funny. I just listened to a podcast with the guy that you're talking about. He was on the Diary of a CEO.
Oh, really?
And which is a really great podcast, by the way.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the guy who wrote that is just intelligent, but it is impressive. I mean, they did say the biggest predictor of a good life, of happiness, is relationships, and like really being in community with other people, whether they're similar, whether they're different. It's like they're part of something. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm constantly trying to find that. It's like whether it was at Outreach, as I was building teams, when I opened up the New York office, like not only did I want relationships, like I just wanted to make a great team and a great community. Now I'm at Catalyst, like my number one priority. Yes, I care about sales. I care about revenue, care about pipeline. But as long as I know if I'm making community and building community amongst my team and our team, the numbers will take care of itself. The standard of everybody holding each other accountable and have each other's backs will take care of itself. And, the Arise immersion, like there's 3 ideals, right? Sales, inner game, community. The most important one, community, because that sets the container. Then just the medicine on it is a little bit of sales, a little bit inner game. But if there's community, that's the best.
We all go further together. We literally can't achieve as an individual what we could when we, combine forces and lift each other up. So, man, good vibes to start this interview, and we're going to keep it rolling. Now, the second unexpected lesson that you mentioned on your post was that the more you yearn for the customer, the less they yearn for you. Expand on that a little bit.
I think I got this one more from just like going through the experience of dating.
I immediately thought this is dating.
This is dating.
That, man, 100% in my personal life.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, it's tough, right? Because it's
like dating. It really is.
It's like as soon as you want something, like applied to sales, it's like as soon as if you want the deal more than the prospect wants the deal, you have a problem. Because the prospect, your champion, who's actually driving the deal, needs to be the one who wants it more. If you're wanting it more, it's self-serving. You got that wonderful commission breath that people love, actually hate the taste of or the smell of right there. And then, in regards to dating, it's like, as soon as I'm trying to, I'm a big meditator, and it's part of my practice. I've, participated in it for,
Quick thing, what's your practice? Like just practically speaking, pun intended. Are you doing a video that you're following, or what's your practice?
I have the app Insight Timer. And so every single morning, I'll give you my whole morning routine. How about that? So I wake up, I do a few stretches just to loosen my body. I hop in the shower. I finish with a cold shower with a round of Wim Hof in there.
Yeah, Wim Hof, man. Let's go.
I get out of the shower. I read a little bit of kind of my daily motivational, daily Stoic or Bible verse, something like that to kind of just get me going. And then I'll meditate for 30 minutes. And sometimes that will be guided. Most of the time, it's just me kind of sitting there and working and feeling into my body and doing different types of practices that I've learned through. I have a meditation coach. I've gone to meditation retreats as well, and try to work through that. Yeah. So it's a good one. It's a good one. My morning routine is a very sacred spot for me. If I don't, I'm back to back every single day in meetings, whether it be through Alluviance or whether it be through Catalyst, whatever it might be. And if I don't take care of and nourish myself in the morning first, the rest of the day is going to be a little bit chaotic.
I'm glad we double clicked on it. I had to interrupt you because I think that everyone wants to know what are the best morning routines? What are the habits of high performers? How can I unlock my potential? So those were some golden nuggets for sure. And yeah, what I interrupted was you were talking more about the more you yearn for, a customer or for a deal, the less they yearn for you, and how there are parallels to dating. And then your third one, the lesson learned was how being attached to outcomes actually really, the more you cling to the outcome, the less likely it is to be attained. So that's pretty similar, isn't it? Anything else you add on that one?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I'll say just about my morning practice is I am constantly changing and evolving my morning practice. Sometimes my breath work isn't quite hitting as it used to be because it's a little stale. Sometimes, what I'm reading isn't quite like clicking. I'm just going through the motions. And so don't be afraid to let your practice evolve and grow.
Yeah, I'll just relate to that. Like I used to be so rigid. Like I need to do X, Y, Z, 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 or like there are 3 Z's. I don't know where that came from, but you know what I'm saying? I was so rigid, and I love the idea of flexibility. That's great advice. Yeah. But I would say,
the more you cling to an outcome, the less likely it is to be attained. It's very similar to the more you yearn, the less likely they'll yearn for you. I related to my meditation practice because a lot of times, I will try to almost like ground myself through something or someone else. It's almost like if I have this, then I'll be good. If I have the great relationship, if I close this deal, if I'm number one, if I'm making this amount of money on my W-2. And it brings this like leaky energy on the other person. Like they can, whether or not they realize it, they feel it. It's just like, man, this person isn't good enough just with themselves. Like you have to be willing to say, hey, I would absolutely love in regards to dating to be able to date you. Or I would absolutely love in regards to sales to be able to close this deal. But I don't need it. Actually, my self-worth, my state of sovereignty isn't dependent on whether or not you agree to work with me or you like me. I'm already good enough. And I will tell you that is my practice. Like that is my work right there, because I'm constantly finding things that if I'm not in the right state, oh, maybe this will make me feel better. Oh, maybe if I'm trying to do this or try to hang out with this person or try to get invited to all these parties, then I'll feel finally good. But at the end of the day, until we start to feel good with ourselves, that when I'm there, it starts to really like almost like emanate from my body. Like there's a transmission that comes from me that some people are just like, damn, like who's that person? What's that person about? Right? They're so you've seen these people, they're so not just in their own body and just like fully themselves, but they're confident in themselves. And I'll even relate it to if I went up to somebody and was like, hey man, you're pretty weird. And they're like, I'm not weird. What are you talking about? I'm totally normal. I'd be like, dude, you're weird. Like, just give it up. Versus if I went up to somebody and said, hey man, you're pretty weird. They're like, hell yeah, I'm weird, dog.
That was my first gut instinct. Is like, yes, I am. Like, tell me what I don't know.
It's like, I'm the weirdest person I know. Like, I freaking own that. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. Like you being more owning yourself and in your own weird makes me want to be more in my own weird and just own that. Like you're just giving off that feeling. And that's what everybody is. That's what I'm constantly trying to work on myself.
I relate to that so much. That resonated with me. And there's a guy named JP Sears, and he's actually based in Austin, like a lot of other influencers like Tim Ferriss and then eventually Alex Kremer, who's coming here. And so, have you heard of JP Sears? He's given him like a really multi-million-dollar TED Talk. He's like the ultimate way to escape competition is basically to be yourself as weird as you are. Like his TED Talk isn't that unbelievably powerful? Like your weirdness and your rough edges is how you stand out and shine. And so it was like, I don't know if his talk was like embrace his weirdness, but I'll have to link it in the description of this video. It was a really good TED Talk and he's just hilarious. So man, so many good nuggets, brother. Let's see what else we can dig into on these unexpected lessons learned. Okay. There's a few more. These were all good, so I wanted to walk through each one. The greater the current struggles, the smoother they will flow in the future.
Yeah. I don't know if other people experience this, but I post about this on LinkedIn and whatnot. Like I've struggled with depression my entire life. It's part of I have 3 sisters. All of them have dealt with it. My dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family. It's a part of our DNA, so to speak. And it really hit me a lot when I was in 2017. I was living in San Francisco. I was working at Microsoft, making more money, number one on my team, and I hated my life. Like I didn't want to wake up in the morning. If you looked in my room, it was just completely disheveled. And I really battled. I went to a very, very dark place. And I remember being in that dark place. I ended up moving back to Seattle, which is where my family lived at the time. And I ended up seeking some help. I actually ended up joining a community that was focused on personal development and doing kind of the work. And I really ended up, getting into meditation and mindfulness. That was the beginning of my journey there. And it took going to a very dark and lonely and isolating place for me to raise my hand and say, I need help. Like I need to work on whatever I got going on here. And it took that to go and start speaking with people about what I was going through and to start to unravel this identity that I had placed in myself and this pressure and this insecurity, and to really say, like, where are these parts coming from? And, it's funny. It took me about, I would say, between 2 to 3 months of, like, I was really with it. And I really went to the points where I was like, there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of, excavation that occurred and some hard conversations. And I don't know where the flip happened, but like 2 to 3 months later, all of a sudden I was in, like, I'd call it a state of flow, but it's not necessarily a state of, like, all of a sudden I was just like, I felt good. Like, not only was I, like, good about myself, but I was attracting this type of energy to me that people were attracted to me. Deals were coming towards me. Like, I just felt a greater level of abundance. And again, I don't know when it flipped, but what it did, like the beginning of the journey to lead towards the flip, was saying, man, this pain, this darkness, this struggle is catalyzing me to go and face whatever the frick it is that I need to face. And that started just a massive journey. And by no means am I done with that journey. Like it's still a part of me, but my relationship towards it is different. And yes, do I go through dark times? Absolutely. But the more that I do these types of practices, when I'm going down the roller coaster towards the dark times, it doesn't go so low, or maybe it doesn't, like, stay so low for so long. Certain times it definitely gets low, and certain it's hard, but I know now enough times that because I'm willing to go and do the work, like I like, this, not to, like, toot my own horn, but, like, just to state, like, what I do as part of my practice. Like, I'm a part of 2 communities, and I go to 2 retreats a quarter. I have, 2 coaches, and I see a therapist. Like, I invest into myself because I know not only do I have really tall ceilings and really tall vision that I really want to grow into, but in order to do that and to be in integrity with me sharing a message, with coaching people, with developing these communities, I need to do the work first. I need to do that. That's a part of who I am. And again, that's just a curiosity. I'm like, oh, teach me more about myself. Why am I the way I am? And what am I supposed to do? And, I think when you're in those dark times, the sooner you're with it, the sooner you realize it's actually a very thin wall to that flow. It's a very thin wall to all of a sudden you're like, wow, I just integrated whatever part of me that I needed to integrate. I just went back to a past version of myself in 5th grade when I, struggled with this thing with my baseball coach because he didn't like me or something. Like, it's just like, I've had to do that work. And, like, once I do that, it's hard and scary, but all of a sudden it's like a little jewel in my hand that I just crush, and, like, the power, like, surges through my body like that. Yeah. It's like Ender's Game or whatever, when he crushes
I literally thought of Thanos in Avengers.
Yes.
Well, you're a good version.
That part, that is like the thing that just I need. And,
Yeah. Wow. We have so much in common, brother. When I was at Google Cloud, just like you were at Microsoft, I was inside sales at the time, and I got promoted to field sales at 26 as one of the youngest in the organization. And I was going to Los Angeles. And I was just about to start a YouTube channel, or it was a different channel, Pursuit of Possibility, which I actually got that concept from a seminar, personal growth and leadership seminar called Landmark, and inventing possibilities for the future. And so I was all excited. It was before this new evolution of focusing on tech sales. But anyways, top of the world, got a new girlfriend, everything's flowing. And I moved to LA, field sales at 26, and then this pandemic happens. I'm in denial, and I'm taking meetings with CEOs in my boxers. They didn't know that, from my bed. I didn't even get a stand-up desk. And slowly but surely, I had some personal issues, and all of a sudden, I didn't want to get out of bed. Like, I just wanted to sleep. The thought escape popped into my head for the first time, and that thought got even darker. I had a clinical depression, and it lasted for 7 months. And I was always the guy that everyone leaned on as Mr. Positive, lifting people up. And I hit my rock bottom. I felt like I lost my mind. And so, long story short, I went through that depression and I grew so much from it, and I could unpack all of the transformation that happened. I did notice once I stopped pulling the Chinese finger trap, like resisting my negative feelings and embracing. And once I took off work and rested and almost gave up in a surrender way, the path revealed itself, and I made some changes. I moved back to Austin, and I ended up, making some career changes too. But anyways, I really relate to you, brother. And I think that I appreciate you bringing the topic of depression up, because I think it's really important to talk about. And I don't know if you've met Brandon Fluharty, who has 7 Steps to 7 Figures. And if not, I'll make sure you guys get connected. We all could do something great. But he even posted, I don't know if this or last month was Mental Health Awareness Month. Do you know?
Last month was, yeah.
And so it's like unbelievable too, how people who have done incredible things like yourself, are making such an impact, went through a process of really being broken down. And I don't know, do you think that's just a part of the journey as we grow as adults,
I mean, I have no choice but to say yes, because if it's not actually, then I don't know what the reason is behind. But I'll tell you this.
Yeah, I led you to it.
Yeah, like I hope so. I'll tell you this though. Yeah. My dad, growing up, I've always looked up to my dad, and my dad's got his work to do, just like everybody else has work to do. And one of the things he used to tell me is that when somebody would ask, "How are you doing?" you should always say, "I'm doing awesome." Because what it's going to do is going to do 2 things. Number one, and they're going to hear it, and hopefully they're going to feel better because you said that and you brought good vibes. And number 2, it's going to go in your ear and hopefully brainwash you into believing you're doing awesome. And so when somebody used to ask me when I was younger, like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'd be like, "I'm doing awesome," which is like a big old smile on my face, even when I wasn't feeling awesome. Actually, especially when I wasn't doing awesome. And just like you said, it used to cause me to bury these things down deeper, right? I have to be the person who's always great, because everybody wants somebody who's always doing great. People don't want a Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
Right. And that just became a thing. But we need to realize, what I have realized in my own journey is that the shadows, the tougher emotions, the insecurities, when we come face to face with them, that I don't know if you ever watched Dragon Ball Z, but like, when they,
I used to pretend I was Goku and do Kamehameha with my best friend, dude.
Yes.
Dude, we have so much in common.
Yes. When they used to like up level, or like go into like the next Super Saiyan.
Like, hair, dude. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They used to, they get bigger muscle, and the guy gets blonde.
The hair gets long. Super Saiyan 4, black hair.
That's what I feel like. The more we do the excavation, the more we choose to do the work to improve ourselves, the more we ask for direct coaching. Like, I have one of my coaches, the Zen monk, Rob Renahan. I talk to him every single day, and constantly he's giving me such direct feedback that sometimes I'm like, "Damn, dude, like that hurt." Like, and most of the time it's like, that actually really hurt, because that's like a big like sore spot of me. And I get my defensive, but he's doing it on purpose to try to Super Saiyan me, or to up level me and learn and to face those challenges.
Yeah, we should have called this talk "How to Go Super Saiyan in Sales."
That's a headline right there.
Yeah. So, there's 2 more left, but I'm just going to pick one because there's some other topics I want to get to. And again, these are the unexpected lessons you've learned in your 12 or 13-year career in tech sales. So this one actually resonated with me so much. The deeper your fascination with others, the more fascinating you become to them. Talk about that a little bit.
So this is a classic book, one of my first like personal development leadership books I ever read, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes.
And there was one chapter, it's a classic, and it's also got just such basic, like types of philosophies that are so true. Like, one of them is simply remembering people's names. And people's names are the best thing that they can hear. It gets their attention. It shows that you care about them. And just simply asking people questions about themselves. Even think of like Chris Voss's, book, Never Split the Difference.
Never Split the Difference, yes.
It's like, just the fact of mirroring back to somebody what they said to you in the form of a question, and it keeps them going. Everybody just wants to talk about themselves. And, when you are truly holding presence for someone, like the biggest gift that you can give anybody is your presence, because you cannot divide your presence. You cannot multitask. How many stats have you said that multitasking doesn't work? But when you're giving people your full presence, like I can even feel you giving me your full presence right here. There's a transmission that comes from that. There's like, oh man, like this guy is really like
chills
tapping into me. And it creates this like little container between you and I. It's like this little like aura around us, even though if we're doing it over video call right here.
I feel it though.
You feel it. You feel it. And so the more that you can bring that presence to people and both receive them as well as give to them your heart, and that love, whatever you want to call it, like it's a differentiator. It's different. Like today, how often are you on a Zoom call where somebody you see is typing? How often are you out with somebody where they're texting on the phone, they're looking at Instagram, whatever it might be? Presence and attention is rare. And when you can truly show that and give that to somebody, and I'm going to raise my hand, I'm not perfect at it. And I have a lot of work to do on myself, but when we can do that and intentionally do it, dude, like that's the name of the game. It goes back to the community thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, and thank you to the folks who've showed up live here today so far for your presence and attention. And thank you for the future viewers to come for showing up. You guys, I really don't take for granted that you have busy schedules and you made time for this. So, Alex, I wanted to transition to a topic that is really important to talk about. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Lost my train of thought, but I'm back on the train. People who are trying to break into tech sales, it's a lot of this audience. They're trying to launch in this new career path that opens up new opportunities for themselves. And on that journey, if they had no experience in the past, it's easy to confront imposter syndrome. We've all heard about this. And it's a sense of like, I don't have experience. Maybe it's that feeling of I'm not enough. And what would be your words of encouragement to the folks who don't have the experience that are trying to make this leap into new territory and get a job in tech sales?
Yeah. First thing I'll say is that everybody deals with imposter syndrome. I deal with imposter syndrome. I deal with a lack of confidence for certain things and all of that. So if you have that, your work is my work, and I see you. But here's what I'll say. I've hired SDRs, I've hired account executives, people who have had no experience in tech, people I've hired into closing positions who've had no experience in a closing type of position. The thing that I look for the most for people trying to move into this is there a hunger to get better? Like, I just want to learn. And, I'll tell you the three things that I lead my team by. The three core values is, first off, you're not a sales rep, you're a sales professional, right? Number two is this is more than just a bunch of individual contributors who happen to report to the same manager. Like, this is a crew, this is a unit. And number three, let's crush quota, but let's do it by living to our fullest version of ourselves, a level of fulfillment. And when I'm interviewing people, or when I'm coaching or mentoring people, or people who want to get into sales who are not in sales talk to me, I really focus on those first two things. I say, ensure that you are doing what is ever in your, ability to do, your control, to show and to become a better at your craft. Whether it is reading books, whether it is attending webinars, whether it is finding a mentor and just being like, can I just ask you questions all the time? And a lot of things that I'll do, especially in an interview with somebody, is I'll have them do like a mock cold call with me, or I'll have them do a mock discovery call with me.
Yeah.
And at the end, I'll say, awesome. Would you be open if I provided you some feedback? And I look for how they respond to that question very closely, because it's less about like what feedback I'm giving you, because everybody can learn sales to a point, right? Sure, there's a level of embodiment that people need to have, but the craft, the frameworks, the processes, you can learn that. And if I say, are you open to feedback? And I say, yeah. And they cross their arms and kind of lean back. Okay, noted. There's a level of resistance right there. But if they say, oh, absolutely, we'll love some feedback, and they take out a pen and they're ready to write it down, and then even bonus points, they say, okay, that was awesome. Like, can I try that again? Like, can I do it one more time with you to see if I actually got it? And I'm seeing their brain saying, like, I just want to get better. Like, I haven't satiated this appetite of like, teach me these skills. And I'm like, as a leader, I'm like, damn, I want to invest in this person. This person would be fun to coach and develop. Wow. I could see that if you started getting this, you would bring this mindset towards the future things. And that's exciting to be. And the second thing is, make sure you I prefer having a phenomenon that is of not just great individual contributors, but of leaders. People who want to raise their hand for additional projects, people who want to be part of a team that they're getting to learn and to grow from. And so if somebody who's trying to break into sales, yes, you might deal with imposter syndrome. Yes, you might say, hey, I don't know the craft or whatever it is. It's like, that's okay. Just start to work towards the actions. And I'll finish with this. I'll let you ask another question. I remember one time I was on a call with one of my coaches. This was back, I think, in like 2018. I was an account executive at Outreach. And I got on a call with him. His name is Ben Skemper. I was like, Ben, I decided, man, I just want to be great at closing. I was like, that's just what I want. I want to become a great freaking closer. I was like, I'm good at discovery, pretty good at demoing, but it's like after the demo, like, how do I close better? He's like, all right, let's talk about this. He's like, if you were a great closer, what would the impact of that be on you 5 years from now? And I was like, oh man, like I'd probably like feel good. I'd feel more confident. I'd have like a great home. I'd be able to like support my family. He's like, cool. I was in a relationship at the time. He's like, how do you think that this would impact your partner? I was like, oh man, she'd probably like love me more. She'd probably be more attracted to me because I felt good and I was confident. Like I could like serve her and buy her things to like show my love. He's like, awesome. And he went into a few more like impact questions, to the point where I was so sold at that point of becoming a better closer because I had enrolled myself into the vision. I was like, damn, now I really want to be a great closer because I see what the impact of that would be. And I remember he asked me such a simple question after that. He's like, cool, how do you do it? Because he said the why is actually the hardest part to overcome something. The easy part is just the freaking execution. Again, it goes back to go find a mentor, join a sales like course, read a sales book, like do mock calls with a teammate. There's an infinite number of things that one can do to better the craft. But if it's not first built upon a vision, a higher calling that you can actually source from, he says like if I paint a really powerful vision of myself getting a hell of a lot stronger and feeling good and healthier, it's going to cause me to want to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go work out because I'm driven from that vision. Versus when I, hear that alarm clock go off and I hit the snooze because I'm like, I could be stronger, but like, I don't really care, I guess. It's not that big of a deal. It's got to be important to you. You got to enroll yourself into your own vision in order to have the execution of it really start to drive somewhere.
So when your why and your vision is strong enough, your necessity goes to the roof and there's no other option than just to make it happen. And the how basically will reveal itself. And clearly you went to a mentor who could support you on the path, and that's key. But he he guided you to the answers that really were within you all along, which is really cool. And I'm sure you do that with everyone that you work with. And that's something that I've noticed in my own coaching, that it all starts with why. Have you seen that TED Talk by Simon Sinek? I'm sure you have, right? And did you ever read his book, Start With Why?
Yep. Great one.
Was there any nuggets from that book beyond what we've already discussed about starting with why that resonated with you?
I can't remember if this was like the difference between being good to great by Jim Collins, or this was the Start With Why, but it was like the hedgehog concept, where it was like, I worked at Microsoft, obviously, and Microsoft didn't do so well in the early 2000s. And one of the reasons why was because they started to try to do everything, a little bit of devices, do the cloud, do some data stuff, like all over. And it lost the direction of what was the company really trying to do. And until they ended up selling off of the devices, like selling off of, like, we're not doing Nokia anymore. They really changed to being very singularly focused on like what is truly the essence of our mission right here. They made it a hell of a lot more clear. Like, this is our mission. This is our strategy right here. And I apply that to myself. Like, if I'm trying to do, I have the Rising Leader podcast, if I'm trying to do Alluviance, and if I'm trying to do Catalyst, and all of them are about different things, I'm going to be spread too thin. I'm going to be, adequate at a lot of things, versus where I feel really aligned is like my Rising Leader podcast and my Alluviance and Catalyst are all working towards the same exact thing, to bring forth a new wave of rising leadership to help people feel a greater sense of purpose, connection, and growth. Like, that is the mission statement of everything I do. It all comes back to that. And the sooner we are clear on that, that becomes the lens through which we are looking through at what we're trying to achieve. And I had another great mentor one time tell me, you move towards what you think and talk about most. You move towards what you think and talk about most. So I get the lucky opportunity to think and talk about that literally all the time, whether it be through this podcast here with you, whether or my team, but like, that's, I'm trying to change. I need to bring that change to myself.
It's amazing. And through the spoken word, ideas are brought into existence, and it's just so powerful. That language is the tool to create. And your edification, your inspiration comes alive in the listening of others. And who knows, the folks who have, shown up today, who might experience a lighting of a spark within them. And there definitely are some future leaders tuned in today, like Marco, and Marco's shown up pretty consistently lately. So Marco, I commend you and appreciate your time and attention showing up for these interviews. And he's got a question for you. So he wanted to know what your day-to-day looked like at Microsoft. Are there any leadership principles that you learned working at Microsoft that you still use today?
Yeah, great question. Microsoft was a lot of a different sell than Outreach, because there was a whole host of different, products that I could be selling. I was the account executive and I owned the relationship with the client. And so my main job and my biggest leadership thing that I realized on that was how to be a quarterback. Like, I wasn't the guy who could dive deep on the technical aspects of how Azure or Office 365 worked. I wasn't, the person who knew the roadmap of this particular product. I wasn't the person who was going to implement whatever product or solution that they got. But what I was the owner of is I was the quarterback, and I called the plays. And just like Tom Brady, yeah, I could run the ball every once in a while by myself, but it probably didn't look too pretty. I was way better at throwing the ball to somebody else or handing the ball off to the running back.
Yes.
So as long as I was prepped and saying, hey, I'm the owner of my book of business, of these accounts, there's $100 million that was coming from my book of business. And we had about a $30 million quota. And it was my job to understand, where is the client at? What are their priorities and initiatives? What are some of the struggles that they're facing today? And based on that, I was the one who was holding my team meetings, getting the feedback from everybody, understanding different point of views, and then calling the play and ensuring that prior to the meeting, everybody was prepped and ready to go. And we got to the outcomes that we were really driving towards. And that was a great, learning for me of just like, what does it mean to be a leader, even when you're an account executive, even when you're a rep, of how to lead both the client as well as the team that you are leading.
Yeah, I really relate to that, being at Oracle and at Google Cloud, and even now at Bespin, which is a cloud consulting partner. I've always been in that quarterback role when you're selling hundreds of tools that form this platform, and you've got your security experts and your data analytics experts. So Alex and I, when we got coffee, it was cool to see that we had such a similar background. But one aspect of your experience that I don't have is selling SaaS. So continuing on this thought, what was it like selling, and you're still selling SaaS, right? Like, what's it like selling SaaS? What have you learned from that experience, and how is it different than selling a monster enterprise platform?
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I left Microsoft is because there was a part of me that said, are they just buying from me because I have an @Microsoft.com email address? Because they're already paying for certain solutions or products that we have. And now I'm just in an upselling motion. And I really wanted to go to somewhere that was going to teach me how to sell, like truly like influence people into making a decision. That was aligned for both parties, of course, but they didn't buy from me because I had a credible email address. I actually wanted to go to a spot that says, people don't know who the hell this is, and I need to learn the process of influence and how to lead people. And, I kind of had to put on a little bit more of like a how to sling some SaaS type of mindset. It was the first time that I had to learn how to prospect into a large book of business where nobody knew about us and nobody, even knew about the problems we were trying to solve for. And it was more of an educational sale. And when I got on a demo, I didn't have a solution specialist or a technical specialist giving the demo. I was giving the demo. And I had to tell a narrative and an anecdote around it, right? When I pitched a product, per se, I had to learn the framework around how to pitch a product, what's called command of the message, right? How to paint the before situation and the negative stuff that comes, and then what our product does to solve for it, and the positive stuff that comes from it. And it's like a learned framework and influence like that. And that was extremely challenging. And I loved it because every single day I was growing immensely. And, luckily, Outreach ended up, blowing up, and I got the opportunity to become a leader. And I will tell you, I learned more about sales once I became a manager than I ever did as an IC. And that might not be for everybody, and maybe not everybody wants to be a leader. But when you are forced to teach something, you become a master at it.
Yeah.
Right. When you are required to say not just do something, but to explain why you do something and how you do it and the psychology behind it. Like, I still remember one of the first times I taught an SDR how to do our initial meeting deck. His name was Devin, and he got done. He's like, wow, Alex, like, I didn't realize how much psychology is really built into our initial meeting flow. And I was like, you know what, Devin? I didn't either until I just explained it to you. And it brought such a greater level of intentionality that I was able to bring because I was teaching it to somebody. So two very different types of sales, but both are very important from a leadership as well as from an influence ability there.
Yeah. And by the way, sorry if you heard some pings from my 9-to-5 job in our chat. I just exited out of that, but super insightful to understand what drew you to SaaS and to basically no longer have the crutch you could lean on of the big Microsoft name. And you moved from upselling to truly hunting. And by teaching and being a leader, you became even better at selling, which obviously you continue to do through your immersion retreats and Alluviance and at Catalyst as well as a leader. It's amazing how much what you're juggling and what you're pulling off. But as you said, it's all aligned to the same common vision to help people ultimately rise up. So I wanted to ask you one other question about big enterprise versus startup and SaaS. Were there cultural differences beyond like the actual sales motion that did you appreciate one culture or another?
When I joined Microsoft, I was right out of college, and a majority of people on my team were at a different stage of life than me. Most of them were married and had a family. And, I mentioned this earlier, but there was a little, like, sure, it was a great team. And I really liked the people. The people were amazing, but it did also feel like it was just a bunch of individual contributors who were just out there to get theirs and to support their family. And there's nothing wrong with that. That was just not necessarily what I was looking for, what I was craving. And that became a very important value when I was looking for my next opportunity is does the culture feel like a crew? Like, is it a family? Is it a team? Like, I grew up playing sports. I was in a fraternity in college. I was like, I want like my people right here. And especially when I joined a startup, right? When I joined Outreach, we were, right around 25 million, we were 150 employees. It was still like, man, is this even going to be something? Like, can we make this happen here? And there was such a shared vision and mission of just people are like, we're just in it to win it. And, one of our core values was grit, and our leadership, Manny Medina, the CEO, embodied that in an incredible, incredible way. And it just, that spread throughout the culture there of we're like, hey, we don't know if this is going to be worth anything. We all got shares, but is it going to even matter that we have shares? And there was a shared like, hey, let's get after it. There's more risk, but there's higher reward. Whereas Microsoft it was just a little bit safer. It was, different stages of life, different values that had there. Not one is not better than the other. It just depends on what's the state that you are in. What are you craving that makes you feel most alive?
Yeah, and maybe you're new to tech sales and you want a little bit of handholding. You want some training and some of the marketing that comes with getting an enterprise name like Microsoft on your resume. But when it comes to the fulfillment business and the upside and that shared vision, when you get equity in a company and a stake in the company, which I'm experiencing in my current startup, that can't be beat, in my opinion. So that it's just been so rewarding being at a startup. But thank you for sharing how individuals can think about some of the different trade-offs. And I realize this conversation's flying by and I'm not even keeping pace to hit all the questions. So I'm going to speed it up so that we can hit it somewhat in time. But I was going to ask you, what are some of the most challenging aspects of sales? Like, let's look at the reality of the job. It can be a grind. And then what are some of the most fulfilling? And I know we already hit on some of these, but we could double click down on it.
Yeah, I would say probably the hardest part about sales is the mental health component that goes into, touched on that obviously here. But, having a looming quota out there every quarter and being in a stack rank of where you're at with your peers and it being very visible. And, if you are not feeling good and you're in sales, like that's going to directly impact how you are showing up. If you're feeling like you need that deal, if you're feeling like I need this in order to hit quota, I'm trying to get them to buy, that's going to come out of you in whatever way. And people are going to feel it. People are going to I'm not so sure I like this person's vibe right here. And if one can make, we talked about this, but one can make their self-worth not tied to their quota, but their self-worth tied to owning and being the greatest version of themselves and putting in the work to do that, the byproduct, like I said, it's going to be the results will come. And if not, well, maybe you're not in the right place and, whether it be you or your company, but, that's where I think the goal of keeping yourself mentally strong and grounded, I think is probably at least in my experience, and after, leading, over 200 reps or so, like that's the most important part. Like when people are feeling good, it's like, get that guy on the phones and just like, let's this thing rip.
Yeah, no, you hit on something really important, which is how sales presents you with an opportunity for personal transformation, to separate your value, which is intrinsic and a 10 out of 10 from the day you were born, from your performance. And man, that was a part of my growth at Google in the pandemic, when I hit my depression, when companies were bleeding cash and not everyone was hitting their quota. And I struggled in my first year in the field, and I failed when we look at the numbers. And I was broken down in that sense, if that makes sense. Because I realized I always was a high performer. I went to Georgetown University at Oracle. Google was doing it always, like performing usually wasn't an issue for me. And I finally truly failed. But then I grew from that. And I had there was a guy, Aluva Phoenix. He's like a life coach on the side, but also like a sales trainer at Google. And he told me, Chris, when you fail in sales, do not let that stop you, because even the greatest reps are going to experience a famine year. And there's a guy that I had on the channel as well. He's the author of, his name's Jamal Raymer, author of Mega Deal Secrets. And he closed multiple $50 million deals at Oracle, and that was his claim to fame. And now he teaches people how to do that. And so he failed in 2 sales jobs in a row due to underperformance. And then he went to close $50 million deals. Isn't that amazing? So, but you're right.
I know Jamal. He's a great follow on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah. We'll all have to get together at some point. I forget where he's based though. Oh, I think he's abroad actually, because his wife is in he met her in Austria or something. But anyways, I forget. But so you hit it, and you hit on the negative aspects or the challenges, but there's definitely opportunity that comes from it. And I wanted to hear about the most rewarding aspects, which you already kind of hit on, but we did get a comment from Marco. He said, Alex's passion is clearly noticeable to leave a safe job, quote unquote, that pays well, and to move to an entirely different offering. SaaS shows his willingness to be the best version of himself. Hashtag TB12 Tom Brady. I used to live in Boston. So he's comparing you to the GOAT. So
that's a tall compliment right there.
Pat on the back there. But anyways, what are some of the most meaningful aspects of this path? And let's finish up the conversation. We're going to move into talking about moving into leadership as well.
Yeah. I'll say there's 2 things that come top of mind. The first one is when you are able to develop a genuine and authentic relationship with the prospect, where you can move from being just a seller and a buyer to hey, let's be on the same team here together and let's get this done. Man, that's a great feeling. One of my favorite questions to ask in a sale is, hey, if I take off my Catalyst hat here, you take off your insert company hat here, can I ask you just why do you care about this? What's in this for you? You've now, contributed 3-4 meetings with us, and you keep showing up and engage. What's a win for you and you specifically, in addition to your company? And when I ask that question, I want to know because I genuinely want to know, because I want to say, cool, let's make sure we hit your company's initiatives and let's get you. And some people say, oh, I want to get this promotion. Oh, I really just want to make sure my team is taken together. Oh, I really care about the leader and he's really driving this. It's cool. Let's do that. But that question in itself is a differentiator. Again, it goes back to the presence that you're giving. And, I just love, it's when the prospect, I've gotten this a few times, when a contract is signed and the prospect sends the champagne bottle popping emoji.
Wow.
And you're yes, that's what, this isn't just I'm not just excited about this, you're excited about it. It's a true win-win. I'm not swindling you. Yeah. I'm not trying to get you to buy when I know it's not. It's when you're in true service of a win-win. So that's number one.
And that's a great question, by the way, guys. Make sure to take notes, and I'll turn it into a short form clip, but that's really good to use with customers. Anyways, back to you.
Yeah. That'll increase your win rates right there. When it's coming from an authentic spot, obviously.
Yes.
The second thing I love about sales, beyond just, the personal development, all that sort of stuff, I love learning the craft. It's what I want to be as a great sales professional, it's like insert product, service, value prop, whatever here. I've learned the way to set a powerful frame, how to do effective discovery, how to align to a business initiative, how to do an effective demo that engages multiple people, how to negotiate for a strong price. Man, that just makes me feel like good. Like I feel strong. I feel, confident in myself to do that. And that will just, I like the craft. Like, yes, mindset is the most important. Community is incredibly important, but the craft is also really important. And I love the craft.
And there's a healthy sense of pride, like a healthy sense of pride in being able to make things happen, increase your bank account while also creating a win-win. It's not in a manipulative way.
Yes.
Money is a consequence that you're like, you take the hat off. Like, what's in it for you? And so that is something to be really proud of. And I think that you can directly impact that bank account. You can create more freedom in your life for yourself, for your family. That's awesome.
It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. And then once you get to teach that to other people,
game over.
There you go.
And you are an example of the path that, I see for myself and I've been going down as well. And I think that many folks can step into, which is you get into tech sales, you develop great skills, you trade that and you start to make money. And then you step into leadership and are able to teach and lift others up alongside you. And so I feel like that is just a fun formula and just connect with a lot of amazing people along the way. Mm-hmm. And so we went over because that's what happens when I'm really enjoying these conversations.
I think I was
hey, we're not done though. We're not done though unless you had a hard stop. I have a networking event on generative AI, actually, of all things, at Oracle, my alma mater. But I can show up a little late. But the thing is, I just wanted to finish up talking about Alluviance, the Alluviant Method, and the 4 stages of leadership, and then I'll cut myself off. And I would encourage people to check out Alluviance, linked in the description, check out the course and to learn about the Alluviant Method. I would say go to the Arise Immersion experience coming up I believe it's in July, and I'm going to see you there, but I think the seats were filled. I know Des will be there, which is great.
Des will be there. We're going to have a great time. There is a wait list in case you want to apply. There's going to be future immersions that will come from it as well. Okay,
perfect. So again, to wrap up, talk about Alluviance and the heart and soul of this thing. And then we can talk a little bit about the Alluviant Method. Within the 4 stages of leadership.
I mean, here's what I'll tell you is I've been a part of a lot of different communities. I kind of spoke about my journey. Probably at this point, communities focused on sales, communities focused on leadership, communities focused on meditation, all this sort of stuff, breath work. And I've learned an absolute ton from it. But at the same time, the problem that I've always experienced is there isn't a community that's specifically focused on tech sales professionals who are also wanting to work on the inner game, right? The sales tactics and strategies are definitely important, but if there's not a mental health and emotional health or even a spiritual health that's underlying it, it's going to be very fleeting. It's going to be shallow. And so the goal of Alluviance is to really combine those two is, hey, let's work on the craft and let's work on the inner game of what is the version of yourself that you're wanting to move towards, right? What are some of the parts that maybe you need to do some excavation on? How do we actually go to your edge through things like a cold plunge that makes it then comfortable for you to go to outside your comfort zone, right? You get comfortable with going to your edge. Yeah. And when we can do that in a group of people in community, at the basis, what Alluviance is, it's all about community and bringing forth people together to embody both those things. And like I said, to bring forth a new wave of rising leadership to help people feel purpose, connection, and growth, all while crushing results right there.
It's amazing that we met because my shtick is personal transformation through tech sales, helping more people create personal transformation, freedom, and joy through success in tech sales and the pursuit of self-development. So basically marrying those two things. I always said tech sales and personal growth go together like peanut butter and jelly. So it's amazing to connect with someone like you who is building incredible community to that end. And so can you walk through and just give us a little bit of a taste and teaser of the 4 stages of leadership. I know the first stage, based on doing my homework, is leading yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So take it away.
Yeah. So the Alluviant Method is all based on leadership. And, just like you said, before you can lead anybody else, a team, anything like that, you have to first lead yourself. And in my opinion, there's 2 main ways to do that. First off, to be sourced by your vision, right? To have a direction with which you are heading to. And number 2, to really do the work on yourself, to find out a way to be in your sovereignty, to excavate some of those parts, like I've kind of mentioned a couple times here. And when we can first control ourselves, whether it be through our morning practice, through our presence, through exercising, that's at least the most important thing that you can control. And then the second part is, once you can lead yourself, then you can lead another person, right? You can be in relationship with them. You can enroll them more into their vision, and you can give them your presence, and you can support them on their endeavor. Once you can both lead yourself and then lead another individual, then you can lead a team, right? You can get a team working towards a common goal and a bigger purpose together. I still remember one of my favorite teams I was ever on was the Poway Mustangs back in 7th grade. We were a travel baseball team. And why I loved it is we were either playing wiffle ball or we were playing video games together. It was just, we were there and we were working towards just being together as a crew and working towards just having fun and winning baseball games. And we were freaking good. And it was so wonderful to have your crew. And once you can lead a team, then you can lead a culture, right? It starts to expand beyond just your personal people, but who else maybe that are on the same level as you? Maybe people are even above you that you can step into a greater level of leadership with. And that comes with having standards and values that you're holding yourself to. That's having integrity to do what you said you were going to do, even when nobody's watching or holding you accountable. And that creates that transmission that just everybody rises who's working around you. The people who are on your team, who are, eye level with you, say, man, this person's showing up. I got to be pulling my weight. I'm going to show up too. And the last part is, once you can lead a culture, then you can lead a movement. Then you can really
start that one.
So that's the secret one. Then you can start to pass the torch down to future generations. That's when, because I showed up as a leader to this person, right, and focused on their whole person versus just being a great seller, when that person, or if that person moves into leadership, guess what they're going to be doing to that next person? They're going to be coaching the whole person. And that's just going to create a whole lineage of people who are starting to show up a specific type of way. And so it all goes back to leading yourself first. That's the first place that we can start. Once you can do that, it's a domino effect for the rest.
That really resonates with me. And I recently did a leadership seminar that said exactly that. You first need to lead yourself, and clearly, the principles that you're teaching are highly effective because you've led yourself first. And culture, if you can create a powerful culture, I think that is such a competitive advantage for any organization, whether it's an enterprise SaaS company, a nonprofit trying to make a difference in this world, you name it. So as we wrap up, any final thoughts or words of encouragement for the future leaders out there that maybe they're like, I think I'm called to leadership, but I'm not quite sure, that might need a little push.
So here's what I did when I thought I wanted to move to leadership is I was an account executive, and I went up to 2 SDRs who I knew wanted to be AEs. And I said, hey, would you mind if I mentored you? I asked them if I could mentor them, because I was like, listen, I think you could gain some value from my perspective, and I could gain some value of just like, what does it mean to coach? What does it mean to work with somebody? And I learned through doing that I was like, man, I really enjoy this. Like, I gain a lot of fulfillment from supporting people like this. And, when I, wanted to interview for a management position that wasn't available yet, what I ended up doing is I went and spoke with the leaders of all the other teams. I went and spoke with the solution consultant leader, with the professional services leader, with the SDR leader, with, whoever it might be. And I essentially says like, hey, I could sit here right now and tell you all the reasons why I think I'd be a great manager. But what's most important to me is for me to understand, what do you think is important for a sales manager to embody? What's important to you and to your role? Because I really want to make sure if I do move in that, like, I'm supporting you. And it just completely changed, my conversation with them. And they said, man, Alex is a person, if he moved into the sales leadership role, he'd be a great partner for me. And then I just created advocates. And I essentially said at the end, just like I would say at the end of a sales call to who I think is a champion, is like, hey, so like what my vision is, like, I would love when there's the opportunity for you to advocate on my behalf, right? Get your champions actually working for you and speaking well on your behalf, whether in sales or whether you're trying to go for any new position that you have.
There you have it, folks. Share your vision, create advocates through curiosity is what I'm getting. And ultimately do what it takes to make it happen. And that's something my dad always said. It's so simple and true. And you created opportunities for yourself. So what a great note to end on. And speaking of opportunities, guys, take advantage of the opportunity to connect with Alex on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure I linked his LinkedIn in the description of this video. Check out Alluviance, whether it's getting on the wait list for the Arise Immersion Experience, or learning about the Arise Immersion retreat for the next one, checking out the Alluviant Method and his course, and of course, connect with me as well. Alex, any other calls to action on your end before we sign off?
Keep on listening to Chris Bussing. He's got some words of wisdom right here. No, I appreciate this, man. This is a really good conversation. He has phenomenal questions. And for all the people who are listening, just like massive gratitude for you for tuning in. And listen, we're trying to change the world here. We're trying to create a movement, right? So let's support each other.
It's just so great to connect with someone like you, cut from the same cloth. The final similarity, probably of many others to come, is that I actually played for an AAU baseball team called the Mustangs. My mind is blown. We got so much.
Let's go.
Great to have you in Austin, man. And guys, everyone who showed up, thank you so much. It's time to rise up. I'll see you in the next one.
Later, y'all.